So let's welcome back to the big table our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley, the editorial page editor of the Detroit News, and Stephen Henderson, host of Detroit Today on WDET Radio. Happy 2018, guys.
Happy New Year.
Cue the horns and the confetti, right?
There you go.
Though you have no New Year's resolutions. I read a grumpy column of yours that you said, I'm good the way I am.
I am now the hero of every old crank in America.
But you already were,
the voice
though, Nolan.
of cranky old man. No, it's like I wrote, my resolution is to accept my flab and my flaws and not worry about improving.
That's right. Didn't you say I am what I am? Just
I am what I am.
There
No
you
more-
go.
I think a lot of people are in that just.
improve.
I think a lot of people are in that just hang on mode right now. I thought a lot of people on New Year's Eve on Twitter and stuff were talking about no resolutions, just let me survive another 12 months.
Well, I think I'm trying to take the glasses half full. That 2018 is going to be a much better year than 2017. I'm going to throw that out there right now. And you guys are giving me the hairy eyeball that I'm totally wrong.
It's started out good so far. Stock market is booming.
I know, what, at 25,000, eh? All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at what we think are going to be kind of the top 5 stories that people should be watching for in 2018. And you have to start with number 1. It's got to be politics, especially because of the political year we're in. The governor's race, you've got some seats in Congress open up, and you've got an interesting kind of crop of ballot proposals that we could see. I'm going to start with you, Nolan. What interests you most here?
Well, I think it's the most interesting election season I've seen in a long, long time in this state. There are no federal, well, there's congressional elections and a Senate race. So yeah, it's the whole gamut. There's no presidential race this year, but still, for an off-year election, this thing is just jam-packed. Every single office in the state, basically, is going to be up. And, control of the legislature will be at stake. Michigan will play a role in who controls Congress, because we got 3 open seats. And, in this environment, they could go either way.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing an interesting crop of what could be new players here in politics. Let me ask you, Stephen, about the governor's race, though. Do you think that we're going to see any other big name jump in the race, or are we pretty set with the candidates on both sides?
I don't know. I said in late December or late 2017 that I thought the field was unformed, and that you would see somebody else with a bigger profile on the Democratic side get in. Maybe Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, maybe Senator Gary Peters. I still think that's a possibility. I think it's getting late, though. If you're going to do it, you got to do it in the next 30 days or so. And I don't know that I see the momentum building in either of those camps to try to do that. I do know that the mayor's been out trying to find, he said he's trying to find somebody who's going to be
still
stronger.
Great dissatisfaction with Gretchen Whitmer amongst the Democratic establishment.
There's a big profile about her, though, talking about looking at her and more women running for office this year. So it's pretty interesting there.
So the Washington Post had a really interesting piece about women and the role they're going to play in 2018, and it focused almost exclusively on Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most flattering pieces I've ever seen written about her. It overlooked some drawbacks that she's had in terms of polls and things like that, but really talked about her stepping out and taking the lead on this. And really, she was one of the first people last year to do that. She was the first person into this race. She has been in it for 12 months, and even with the struggles, I think it's hard to say she's not the obvious front runner.
Well, she's the obvious front runner
because
she's the only one there. But I mean, she's not catching fire yet, and I think that's what's worrying folks like Duggan and others who believe this is a golden opportunity for Democrats to take the governorship.
Ballot proposals. We're looking at marijuana. We're looking at
redistricting, looking at prevailing wage, maybe minimum wage. I mean, it is going to be a big old.
Hello, turnout.
What year was that? Was that 12 or 14 that we had? It was 12 that we had as many as we did, and people didn't like that.
Everybody voted no.
They rejected all but one, I think it was, back then. So I think you always have to be careful about when is your time. What's the right circumstances in which you want to ask the voters to do something. I think the pot thing is in some trouble if it gets on the. I do.
Why?
I think people are not certain about how that would all work. there hasn't been any sort of conversation about it. It's like, well, we're just going to legalize pot. You have all these conflicts between then state law and federal law. You have all of these regulations that then need to be put into place to manage how people do it.
Well, California's figuring it out right now, yeah.
And I think they broke the door open on this. California is a cultural trendsetter, a cultural leader. I think
and you're going to see it on a large scale too.
You know, they're doing it. They started doing it. They're trying to figure out all of the nuances of it. I think that will give Michigan voters some guideline going into November.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other big stories that we think are going to be happening in 2018. I put down immigration reform. I'm taking a look at the decisions that have been made with DACA. Yeah. And also, we saw this week the federal judge coming out and saying, look, all of these Iraqis who have been detained, they deserve bond hearings now.
That's a huge
ICE is not very happy. They came out, they were not pleased, they said, with that ruling. So it is something that it definitely affects many people in Michigan.
Yeah, well, I mean, here you're talking about a dragnet operation to scoop up people who committed crimes, some of them quite minor, many, many years ago, decades ago, and to say that they were going to go back to a country where, for many of them, it would mean a death sentence, right? They're Iraqi Christians. The idea that you wouldn't give them hearings to be able to contest that is absolutely contrary to the constitutional protections that we have in this country, and that's what the judge said. I don't know why ICE is upset about it, other than that this checks their aggression, and I think the rest of us should be pretty happy about that.
All right, you want to weigh in on that real quick?
I think, you know, DACA's up against a hard deadline. These Dreamer kids, that's up against a hard deadline. There's going to be some effort by Democrats to attach it to the budget deal. Yeah. The president wants to swap it for funding for a wall. I think DACA should be part of a broader, comprehensive immigration reform. We've got to figure immigration out. As predicted, if our economy keeps growing as the year has started, we're going to run out of workers if we don't fix our immigration process and start letting qualified workers in.
And in a note written to the president saying that he's got to make this decision in the next couple of weeks, because for all the systems to be kind of turned over in terms of DACA, we don't have as long as I think people had projected. Let me move on so we can get our last couple of points in here. Number 3, K through 12 progress in the state of Michigan. We're going to talk a little bit about DPS a little bit later on in the show, but just looking at achievement in the schools and what we should be doing for the schools, accountability for the teachers, expansion of some schools. That's definitely something that's going to be in the forefront this year. Yeah,
I mean, I have always counseled on this that we need to sort of cool our jets a little bit in terms of constant change in the educational area. We do something for a couple of years, we decide that it's a disaster or that it's not working out the way we wanted it to, and then we switch to something else. I think this would be a great year to say,
we're going to stay the course.
Let's enhance what we're doing where it makes sense, instead of trying to go back to something else or junking it and starting over. And the instinct in Lansing always is to try to say, well, we got to start from the beginning and we got to go in a completely different direction. I don't think that has worked for us historically.
Nolan?
I think it all depends on whether Governor Rick Snyder is going to make this the absolute priority of his final year. When you ask him about education, he talks about job training and careers training. He doesn't seem to have the appetite to make the big moves you need to make to get Michigan started on a comprehensive education reform strategy.
I think it's that he doesn't think he has the support, right? I think his instinct would be to do it, but that he can't get the legislature to go along.
Number 4, we wrote down infrastructure and transit. Let's see if what's going to happen with the RTA, and I'm going to skip to the last one. Number 5, the Amazon effect, and taking a look at downtown development. And things are booming downtown. We will hear if we did land the Amazon campus, but what does that spur, even if we don't land that in Detroit?
Well, I think the process of applying for Amazon was very useful in that it did focus us on our strengths and weaknesses. You mentioned transit. That's our big weakness in drawing this next level of investment in Detroit. And if you don't get something on the ballot in 18, now you got to wait till 20. Now we're 3 years waiting and behind.
All right.